What's up, you guys, and welcome to the channel. My name is Chase, and today we'll be talking about my first impression slash reaction to Terrifier. Now, I've been wanting to get into this series because Terrifier 2 and 3 has definitely been making waves within the horror community, especially online when it comes to a lot of the horror movies I watch, my type of style when it comes to horror, and some of the stuff I've seen people talk about. And is Art the Clown the newest horror icon? I kind of think so, because we are kind of lacking severely when it comes to horror icon, especially when it comes to slashers within the modern day of horror, because there's not really a lot of series in horror within the mainstream that go to the theaters that are sequels for an actual killer, like the same killer in each movie, like a Freddy or Jason, Michael Myers. Well, I mean, you could count Michael Myers, but he's older, so he's kind of like grandfathered in. But with this movie right here, I've been hearing about it. I've been wanting to get into it. You guys know I've been talking a lot lately about horror on this channel, so I thought to myself, why don't I get into the Terrifier series, because 2 and 3 sounds like where it's at, but I've never really heard people talk about 1. And I know that this isn't Art the Clown's debut, but I know that this is his debut, like as him as the main villain of the movie itself. So going into this movie, I watched it and I came out of it and I'm like, whoa, that was a horror movie. And I had to do a little bit of research before I actually got on this, because beforehand I already knew certain things were up, but I was like, let me make sure and confirm this before I speak, and it's not true, and I'm giving it way too much grace that it doesn't necessarily deserve or need. And I'm glad to find out that this was a independent horror movie. It definitely feels like it, and this was made on a lower budget, which I'm not going to knock the movie for, because if it's independent, obviously it's going to have a lower budget compared to a mainstream horror movie. And going into this movie, and I'm just going to judge it based off of what it is, and I already knew going into this movie, it's a killer clown. I'm not expecting the next coming of like Hereditary or Midsummer or anything like that, but I was like, all right, let me at least get a good slasher, a coherent slasher. And what I got with this was a movie I felt like Rob Zombie had made in the late 2000s, early 2010s, because this definitely has Rob Zombie written all over it for me. I know this movie is written, edited, and co-produced by someone named Damian Leon, so shout out to him. But to me, this came off like a Rob Zombie movie. And Rob Zombie is someone who's done the Firefly trilogy, which I'm still missing the third movie of seeing that, and has done the Halloween remake. And honestly, I think the first Halloween remake that he did, I think that kind of gets overhated. I actually like it. I know there's some angles that he takes that a lot of people aren't a fan of, but to me, when it comes to a remake, I expect something a bit different. I expect that creator to do something, you know, unique to their vision. And I actually liked kind of what that movie went for. I didn't like everything, but I did like some stuff of it. But the point I'm trying to get to is that when it comes to Halloween 2, like the remake, the, you know, sequel to the remake that Rob Zombie did, this is what this movie kind of gave me energy wise, look wise. It gave me that grungy, dirty feel like a Rob Zombie movie would have. And I'm not too big on Rob Zombie horror movies. Sadly, I've watched a good amount of them at this point. So I'm just somebody that once I start something, I can't just stop. And so I still got to see the Firefly, like, you know, last movie of the trilogy. But when it comes to this movie right here, it definitely gave me heavy Rob Zombie vibes, especially when it comes to some of the tone, the humor, the look to the actual movie itself. And just speaking about certain things, I didn't find myself a fan of this movie. Now, I get it. Some people love the practical effects of it. They think Art the Clown is very charismatic. He steals the show. And while I will say that he is the main component that kept me wanting to watch this movie, it wasn't enough for me to say, you know what? That's a star in the making right there. I could get behind that guy. I could honestly say I did not think that when going into this movie right here, because I'm like, all right, he has a design of a clown. We already got Pennywise. His design is kind of already boring as is, but it doesn't need to be super out there, because he needs to have some type of menacing presence to him, especially when, you know, when you look down the street, especially with this happening on a Halloween night with 2 girls are coming from a party. You need to see someone who's in a regular, you know, outfit or costume that you be like, okay, I'm not really suspecting anything of him. It's not like JoJo's where it's like, that's obviously the stand villain right there. That's obviously the enemy stand user. But with this right here, he came off creepy and menacing. And I do like Art the Clown, especially at the beginning of the movie. And I kind of like the fact that he's like a fusion between a clown and a mime, because he doesn't really say anything. He doesn't make any noise. Nothing really comes out of him. Even when he's in pain, he doesn't scream. Like, he acts like he does, but he really doesn't. So that's why he comes off a bit more mimish to me, especially with the whole black and white scheme. But he is called Art the Clown. But when it comes to this movie right here, I liked the gore in this movie. I liked how gruesome it was at certain points in this movie. I know this movie was praised for its practical effects, and I think that honestly it looked really good. Nothing really had me like, ooh, that didn't look too good, besides the actual look of the whole movie itself. But besides that, I honestly liked the direction of how the gore, the gruesome, and how some of the kills were. Now, I will say that this movie, to me, it comes off very, like I said, late 2000s, early 2010s, straight to DVD horror movie. That's what this felt like to me, especially when it comes to the quality, the performances. They were not good at all. The plot, it wasn't good at all for me as well. The pacing wasn't good for me at all as well either. This movie felt longer than it needed to be. It could have honestly been like 40 to an hour. I didn't need a whole hour to 30 minutes. And trust me, it feels like that when you are watching the movie, because at some points I'm like, all right, this person died. End of the movie. Oh no, we still had this person that's supposed to come. Okay, maybe something gets figured out real quick, but then it's supposed to tie into the beginning of the movie. And so the beginning of the movie, I was kind of lost upon as well until everything happened towards the end of the movie. But I'm going to kind of talk about spoilers because honestly, this movie came out in 2016. So that's why I'm also giving it a little bit of grace right here. Lower budget as well. And it's an indie horror movie, something that we should be praising a bit when it comes to people coming out with unique ideas. Now, like I said, this to me wasn't too much of a unique idea because I felt like this movie was a been there, done that, like straight to DVD, something I would see at a gas station I pick up in the $5 bin. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be like mean like that, but that's what I got from the vibes of this first movie. I'm pretty sure the second and third movie, obviously they have a bigger budget, so they were able to ramp things up a lot more. But when it comes to this movie right here, nah, I wasn't really feeling it like that. To get into some of the spoiler points that I have, the pacing of the movie, it just felt like it went on for too long. I get it, when you have a villain like this, a character, they're gonna have to kind of like torture and kind of like tease us with killing the people. But when you end up killing the person and it doesn't really like wow me when you kill them versus the teasing that you was doing to the upcoming kill itself, I was like, because at some point he does get a gun and he shoots the girl and I'm like, all right, she's dead. Then he keeps shooting her. I'm like, I didn't need to see that. Like, you already killed her with the shot. I'm not saying, oh, he killed a woman, that's bad, even though it really sounded wrong what I was about to say. But I mean, like, you already shot her with the gun. We know she's dead. You had to shoot her multiple times. Like, I'm like, that was very unnecessary. But that one scene, the one that stole the show for me, when he was sawing that one girl in half, because he took the panties off and, you know, he's Mr. Steal Your Girl, I guess, whatever, you know what I'm saying? He took those off and he saw the girl straight from her crotch all the way down to her neck. I was like, oh, that was really fire. But sadly, to me, there weren't more moments to follow in the footsteps of a moment like that. To me, that was such a show stealer right there. And it really hyped me up. I'm like, okay, we turning up right now. But the rest of the movie, I'm like, all right. And to me, Art the Clown is a bit charismatic. He's a bit goofy. And to me, you need a villain like that, and especially when you are going to have sequels with this character right here, because there is a supernatural element kind of introduced at the end of the movie, which I'm pretty sure they explain in the later movies, but there is a supernatural element. I'm like, all right, I need him to be a bit more charismatic and a bit more goofy within the next sequels, because I need him to wow me as a character. Because going into this movie, I didn't care for none of the actual characters, like the regular human characters, because he follows these two girls that come from a Halloween party at night. They've been drinking and they're trying to go home, but obviously they accidentally run into Art the Clown on the street, and chaos definitely ensues within this moment. And the acting performances from these actors are not good. It's an indie horror movie. A lot of horror movies don't have good acting at all. I'm not expecting the next Denzel Washington coming out of this movie, but man, some of the performances on here, I'm just like, not believable. Not at all. I do not feel your pain at all whatsoever. And another point that I have with this movie and the way it feels Rob Zombie-ish to me is it felt scattered. It felt all over the place. It didn't feel like, let's tighten this up and let's get to going with the plot. Nah, because we had this homeless girl or homeless woman that has this fake baby doll, you know, that she thinks is her actual daughter that's in the movie. We have this other guy who is friends with the maintenance dude that lets one of the girls in to use the bathroom at this old warehouse that's abandoned. We have a whole bunch of stuff like the two girls, one is a bit ditzy, the other one is a bit, you know, paranoid because of Art the Clown, and they call her sister for assistance, and these girls die one by one. But I didn't really care for these girls dying like that, because I thought the main girl that we had, her surviving as long as she did 40 minutes into the movie, I'm like, okay, she dies. We've been following this character. But then now her sister becomes the main character. And I hate when horror movies do that. The only horror movie I like that did that was A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, because I feel like that's where you could kind of like twist and really show who the main character is. Because to me, the way that it was done, there wasn't too much investment in the movie for the first girl that died versus when we get to Nancy in that movie. But with this movie right here, it's like, okay, we're following this one girl, I guess the little sister in this case. And then the second half of the movie, now we're following the big sister finally being able to come and meet up with her little sister. So to me, the acting performances weren't good at all. The kills were kind of predictable to a degree. Like I said, everything in this movie, I felt like I was like, I've been there, I've done that. Nothing really surprised me. Art the Clown himself was the person to steal the show, but even then it felt a bit subdued. But because of the budget, I'm not gonna, knock a point for that. But honestly, for me, going to this movie, the pacing of it, us following different characters, and a lot of these characters I didn't really care for. I'm just waiting for Art the Clown to kill them. I was just like, this is just, as Cody Leach would say, carnage candy. And so I enjoyed my time watching Art the Clown do what Art the Clown does, but I do wish it was done in more unique and creative ways. And I heard in Terrifier 3, he definitely does something like that. That was very controversial, so I cannot wait to see that. But in this movie right here, this is not a movie where I would have watched it and I would have been like, that's a star. He needs some more movies. Honestly, I would have been looking at this like, okay, I watched that. Like, I was like, I would never recommend this or tell someone to watch this. But in scope of it being part of like a trilogy, quadrilogy, I don't know exactly how many movies are supposed to be in Terrifier. I know there's a fourth one coming out soon. But when it comes to this, like, if it didn't have them other like sequels, I wouldn't have recommended this to somebody. I just wouldn't have. I just feel like this isn't a movie to recommend to someone. Now, if they want like a B-rate, straight to DVD horror movie with some slasher vibes, yeah, I recommend this. But honestly, like I said, I'm not trying to kill this movie because I get it's an indie horror movie. But to me, it just came off very Rob Zombie-esque. And I do not like Rob Zombie horror movies like that. Especially that Firefly trilogy. For the love of God. I haven't seen the third one, like I said. But that second one, that's like the worst horror movie I think I've ever seen in my life. But you guys let me know what you think about Terrifier, and if you have seen it, have you watched it multiple times? Are you a fan of the actual series itself? I do want to do my little deep dive and actually watch, the movies that Art the Clown was in before Terrifier 1 itself, because I know he was like in some short films or whatever. But I am super hyped to see Terrifier 2 and 3, eventually 4 whenever that comes to theaters. But I had to get through this one, and this probably is going to be the roughest one. I got to see what people have said about this online. Like I said, I have not seen anyone talk about Terrifier 1, but I've seen people praise Terrifier 2 and 3 from a slasher standpoint. But like I said, let me know what you thought about this down in the comment section down below. Like I said, thank you guys for watching. If you're new to the channel, you haven't already, go ahead, hit the subscribe button and like the video as well. My name is Chase. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.